Okay, it's game day and a big weekend for the Auburn Tigers and the Texas A&M Aggies as Texas A&M comes to town to Auburn, Alabama to take on Auburn, of course, in a huge consequential game for Texas A&M. I think this is going to be a very, very key game, obviously, for Jimbo Fisher and Gus Malzahn. Both have like equally opposite type of consequences in this game. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this game turns out. You look on Texas A&M side of the football field, where what's going on, Samuel Pate? Where I think this is a game that Jimbo Fisher, a signature game. He got one earlier this year against Florida, but now that there's so much on the line, the possibility of Texas A&M actually sneaking in to the college football playoff, I think that adds even more to the consequence of this particular football game. Now, an interesting thing, this has nothing to do with football per se. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Texas A&M and their battle cries called Gig 'em. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Apparently, back in the 1930s, there was a chancellor or some really high degree person on the Texas A&M staff that was kind of getting the crowd going. They were actually about to play the TCU Horned Frogs, and the way it turned out was they were trying to get the crowd riled up, and they were trying to come up with, what are we going to do to the TCU Horned Frogs? Now, if many of you all know, Texas A&M used to be in the Southwest Conference. What's going on, Greg? In the Southwestern Conference / the Big 12 Conference for a long time. So they played teams, obviously, in the state of Texas. As a matter of fact, when Texas A&M came over to the SEC, a lot of those rivalries were lost. And I would like to know in the comment section, for any of the Texas A&M fans out there, how do y'all feel about that? How do y'all feel about, being in the SEC and not being able to play against your old rivals? That's kind of a interesting thing. That's just like taking Auburn and putting them in the ACC, and they really, all those rivalries are just gone for naught. But either way, long story short, the TCU Horned Frogs, they were actually yes, sir. What's going on, Mason McDonald? The TCU Horned Frogs and Texas A&M were about to play a game back in the 1930s. And for those of you also who don't know, a gig is a hunting tool for a frog. So the chancellor actually answered his own question saying, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to gig them. And that has been like a term that is a staple for the Texas A&M fan base. And it's kind of similar to War Eagle, the battle cry. It's also kind of similar to Go Dogs and Hunker Down, and also Roll Tide, Suey Pig at Arkansas. So Texas A&M definitely brought a very interesting element as far as fanfare and tradition to the SEC, and making themselves very, very a traditionalist type football team, as is most college football teams. So let's dig into this football game, though. I think that if Auburn is going to be successful, these are the keys to success today. First of all, you got to come into this game with a high level of intensity. I know it's an 11 o'clock game. I know it is a rumor, or it is perceived that Auburn doesn't play well at 11 o'clock or 12 Eastern time, whatever the case may be. Auburn cannot come out flat. This is a Texas A&M team that is very physical. This is a Texas A&M team that have obviously a whole lot to play for. And if Auburn comes into this game flat, it could be a long morning for the Tigers. And that's something that they definitely absolutely cannot do in this game. Motivation, mentality. What's going on, Danny Blackman? Appreciate you. Good morning. We're talking about Auburn versus Texas A&M. I just went over. You may be one of those guys that were probably wondering, why do the Texas A&M fan base say gig 'em? That's a historical thing. It actually happened right before the TCU game. A gig is a hunting tool for a frog. And of course, we know TCU are the Horned Frogs. So that's where all that came from. So if you hear a Texas A&M fan say gig 'em, it comes directly from a game played between TCU and Texas A&M back in the 1930s. Terry Judkins says War Eagle. I want to give a War Eagle to everyone out there. I'm going to get the comments up so I can see them. Need to eat some eggs. Man, yeah. Samuel Pate says, go Horned Frogs. War Eagle from Orlando, Florida. Let's see. War Eagle. So like I said before, that those games for Texas A&M, I mean, it's over. Like you, unless they play one of those teams in a bowl game, those rivalries are over. And I can only imagine, even though I'm pretty sure most of the fan base probably feels a certain way. I mean, they're in-state rival. Just imagine in the state of Alabama, Auburn goes to the ACC or to another conference, and there's no longer an Auburn Alabama game. Can you guys imagine what that has to be like? So either way, going back to Auburn, what they got to do to win this game. Number one, like I said before, intensity is going to be key. I really think that, and I've talked about this off and on during the week. I think this has to be a game that Bo Nix finally becomes a real, genuine factor. Not have some key moments here and there. I think he needs to be a really genuine factor, a reliable factor, and a confident factor. The team at a certain point, and even the fan base. Like, for example, I remember when, let's just say, Nick Marshall hit the field, or when Jason Campbell, his senior year, hit the field. Even certain points of Sean White when he hit the field. Never really was big on Jarrett Stidham. But when those guys hit the field, you had this trust level to where you're like, okay, this guy can get the job done. This guy's going to make the right decisions. This is going to be a pretty sound football game. I'm going to read this comment real quick. Lawrence Robinson says Auburn has to sell out to stop A&M's running game. Now, here's an example of how Auburn tried to do that last week. At the beginning of the game, I don't know if a lot of you guys noticed, but Derek Hall was actually lined up in the linebacker position. Of course, we know that KJ Britt went down with an injury earlier this year, and that kind of that all but took away the interior linebacker talent that Auburn had there. Because I mean, truth be told, Owen Papo and Zacoby McClain are not interior linebackers. They're more effective when they can play outside. But either way, they bought in, and it actually worked until Alabama started to loosen things up. They brought in Derek Hall, and he actually added some run support. So I do agree. I think Auburn has to stop the run, because putting the game in Kellen Mond's hands is equivalent to putting the game in Bo Nix's hands. When he has that pressure, it's just really, it doesn't bode well for Kellen Mond. Now, I will say this. For Kellen Mond, he's actually showed up in the key games against Florida and Alabama. He had 300 yards. Very successful. Now, in the rain against LSU, some Texas A&M fan brought it up in the comment section earlier, maybe today or maybe yesterday, that Kellen Mond played in the rain. But no, I'm not buying into that, because Kellen Mond has been playing football probably as long as he can remember. And, of course, as a quarterback, you have to factor in the rain. You still have to perform in the rain. Now, don't get me wrong, the elements does play a factor, but we can't use that as an excuse, in that regard. But either way, as we continue to talk about the keys to victory for the Auburn Tigers, what else does Auburn have to do? Well, Auburn definitely has to get the running game reestablished. For the past couple of weeks, with Tank Bigsby going down with injuries on the interior portion of the offensive line, Auburn has not been able to consistently run the ball as successfully as they had in prior games. I think in order for Auburn to win this game, whether it's Tank Bigsby or whether it's a running back by committee, got to have at least 150 solid yards. The majority of those yards, the bulk of those quality yards, have to come between the first and the third quarter. All the cleanup stuff, kind of like what Mark Anthony Richards did last week, that's not something that's going to, you have to establish the running game early, and you have to establish them balanced. What also does Auburn have to do? Bo Nix and the Auburn Tigers, Chad Morris, they're going to have to take advantage of the intermediate portion of the passing game. That's something that's open, but that's not something that's being utilized. Have you noticed the injuries we have every year? Who is the strength coach? Actually, this year has been the year of the injuries, but last year I think Auburn did pretty good with injuries. I think, you got to factor in the COVID-19 and also the guys not being able to work out as consistently and as diligently as they have in the past. But I mean, you know, it's it is a glaring question though. It is something to consider. But at the same time, Auburn wasn't all that bad as far as strength and conditioning last year. I was actually shocked that Auburn went through that brutal season last year, largely uninjured. I think the only significant injury was Booby Whitlow. So I do still think that is a factor as well. That's something to look at down the stretch because strength and conditioning, obviously, and their approach to it, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. Um, it does play a huge role in the performance and the availability and ability of the players. I think more so the the point that outside of strength and conditioning is, let's just say, taking a guy like Seth Williams, kind of similar to what Alabama did with Devonta Smith. How do we take Seth Williams to the next level? You know what I'm saying? How do we take Seth Williams from being a possession slash maybe make a big play every now and then to being a super elite wide receiver? What are some of the little fine tunings from a development standpoint that can happen to get a guy like Seth Williams to that next level? Auburn also on defense. Auburn obviously cannot allow the big play, and Auburn obviously cannot let Isaiah Spiller, who has been a very huge factor in the SEC. He's actually the third leading SEC rusher, and he's been a huge factor in this offense. If he gets going, if Auburn is not able to contain him, and I'm pretty damn sure that Kevin Steele, his eyes are on Isaiah Spiller. Because if Isaiah Spiller has a reasonable amount of success, then I don't think Auburn can win. I really don't think Auburn can win, because if Isaiah Spiller comes into Jordan-Hare Stadium and actually has one of his 150, 160-yard performances, I don't think Auburn can win. I really don't, because their offense will be super balanced, and that will give Kellen Mond some confidence against a really depleted Auburn defense. Then I think Auburn will be in huge trouble. Let's read some of these comments. Just don't think 150 is going to happen. All is going to come down to the mentally rebound from last week. Need to start fast because they get up early. Our offense isn't made to play from behind. No, not at all. Auburn gets down 10 points, I think it's a wrap. That puts pressure on Bo Nix. Texas A&M has a very good defense. What's going on, Andre Ivy? Texas A&M has a very good defense. And you get down, you have a capable Texas A&M offense. I think you're struggling. And I think that puts Bo Nix in a position to where the pressure's on him. That's when you start to have those 35, 40 attempts passing the football, and then you mix in a few interceptions in there. And I think that gets Auburn in a lot of trouble. So Auburn definitely has to start fast. Auburn definitely has to capitalize in the freaking red zone. When you get down in the red zone, you got to score touchdowns in this game. You got to, because you want to put Texas A&M in a position to where they have to be, the pressure's on, to where they have to come play from behind. Another thing, we really want to know where you find your North Face gear, bro. Tell us the man. Listen, I kind of been on this North Face tip for a minute. I go online and find some stuff. I actually like North Face. I ain't rich, but I noticed some of the rich people around here, folks with money. I mean, those damn jackets are like $100. I try to find them wholesale, but either way, wait, A&M lost to Auburn when Gus came to Auburn. What? Good morning, brother. War Eagle, Cleotha, Kenny Jr. What's going on, man? Oh, man. Me on the website looking for time. Yeah, man. But look, okay, so as we round this thing up, I know it's a little early in the morning. I just wanted to holler at y'all real quick. I absolutely hate these early morning games. Obviously, I think the Auburn Tigers are obviously talented enough, as Lawrence Robinson said, to win this game. It just depends on the mentality, how these guys show up. What's going on, Nathan? War Eagle. It just depends on what mentality Auburn is in, what type of game plan, and can they stick to it. The running game has to be forefront. Texas A&M plays very well on defense, especially interior, so they're going to have to attack some things outside and keep Tut out on third down. Yeah, because he's going to get burnt. He's going to match up with their best receiver, and it's going to be a first down or a touchdown. But either way, I hope you guys enjoy the game. Just wanted to come on here real quick just to give you guys some content right before the game starts. The game starts in I think about an hour and a half. Let's see, what time is it? It is 10:30. So yes, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. No news on Tank Bigsby's health. They're keeping that really quiet, but I would not be shocked if he lined up in the backfield this weekend. Now, before you leave, especially for some of you who may be Texas A&M fans, go ahead and click the subscribe button to the right. Click it twice so you don't miss any of the content. I talk about SEC teams as well. But either way, I think this is going to be a really entertaining football game. Definitely have to get Sean Shivers involved. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speak Sports. This is where we come over here and just talk about Auburn football in a very casual kind of way. We throw some facts out there, but we just like to have fun as well. And no, I am not a Gus Malzahn sunshine pumper, but I do understand his deal. Like he's got one thing he's got to get out of his own way to begin with. But either way, not a Gus Malzahn sunshine pumper, but I'm also not going to grossly criticize him on my channel as well. Like the video, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. Good luck to the Auburn Tigers today. War Eagle.